There's a place no Viking warrior wanted to stand. Cold water creeps into your boots, the ground shifts beneath you, and the mud drags at your legs with every step. It smells like rot, like something long forgotten. There's no glory here, no battle, no honor, and yet, this is where their power began. Because hidden beneath these swamps was something that didn't look valuable, didn't look rare, but would go on to change everything. When people think of Vikings, they picture long ships, raids, and brutal combat. Steel flashing, shields breaking, chaos. But almost no one asks the most important question. Where did those weapons come from? Because Scandinavia wasn't supposed to have the answer. No vast mines, no easy metal, no advantage. And yet, somehow, they had one. The land itself was unforgiving. Long winters, poor soil, limited resources. Survival meant using whatever you could find. Forests, stone, and endless wetlands. Cold, unstable places most people avoided. But in those swamps, something strange waited. Reddish-brown clumps scattered through the mud. Heavy, unusual, easy to ignore, unless you looked closer. Someone did. They picked one up, broke it apart, tested it in fire. At first, nothing worked. Then, something did. Slowly, through trial and error, they began to understand. Not with science, but with instinct. They built simple furnaces, fed them with charcoal, pushed the heat higher and higher, and inside that fire, something started to change. What came out wasn't impressive. Rough, dirty, full of impurities. But it was workable. It could be shaped, hammered, refined. Strike after strike, the material grew stronger, denser, more reliable. Mud turned into metal, and metal into weapons. But there was a problem. It wasn't consistent. Some blades bent, some dulled quickly, some failed when it mattered most. And in a world where one moment decides everything, that wasn't good enough. They needed something better, something stronger. And then they started to notice something. Every now and then, a blade would come out different, harder, sharper, more durable. It held its edge. It resisted breaking. It felt right. Not luck, not random. Something was happening inside the fire. Something they couldn't see, but could feel. And once they noticed it, they couldn't ignore it, so they chased it. But this is where the story takes a darker turn. Because to the Vikings, weapons weren't just tools. They carried meaning, identity, power, and in a world shaped by constant war, there was a belief, quiet, unsettling, that something of a person remained after death. Not just memory, but strength, essence, something that could be taken, and some believed it could be forged. There are stories, dark ones, of enemies not simply being buried, but burned, their remains placed into the fire, their bones added to the furnace itself, not out of cruelty alone, but belief that by doing this, you weren't just defeating your enemy, you were taking what made them strong, binding it into your weapon, turning flesh into something that would never break. To us, it sounds like myth, ritual, something symbolic, but inside those furnaces, something very real was happening. Because when organic material burns, especially bone, it releases carbon, and under intense heat, that carbon can be absorbed into iron, changing it, strengthening it, transforming it into something harder, sharper, more durable, steel. The Vikings didn't know the word, they didn't understand the chemistry, but they saw the results. Blades that stayed sharp, weapons that didn't fail, metal that felt undeniably better. And so the belief remained that something more than fire and metal was at work, that the strength of their enemies lived on in the weapons they carried. Whether it was ritual, coincidence, or a strange overlap between belief and reality, it worked. They had found a way to create stronger weapons, and in their world, that changed everything. Because now, they didn't need anyone else. No distant mines, no fragile trade routes. They could create what they needed from their own land, from places others ignored, from mud, from fire, from knowledge passed down through generations. Behind it all were the smiths, not warriors, not kings, but craftsmen working in heat and smoke, refining their methods through repetition and instinct. They didn't know the science, but they understood the result. And sometimes, that's all you need. What began as a strange discovery in a swamp became something far greater, a hidden advantage, a foundation beneath everything the Vikings would become. Because power doesn't just come from strength, it comes from what lies behind it. So when you picture the Vikings, don't just see the ships, or the battles, or the warriors. Picture the swamp, the fire, the hammer striking metal in the dark. Because long before they conquered distant lands, they learned how to transform the world beneath their feet. And in doing so, they forged something far more powerful than they ever understood. And when these refined blades met the battlefield, the difference was real. In a time when weapons varied wildly in quality, a well-forged Viking sword, flexible, resilient, and capable of holding a sharp edge, was something you could trust in the chaos of combat. It didn't fail when a strike had to land. And we see that edge reflected in the stories of warriors like Ragnar Lothbrok, whose name became synonymous with relentless raids and battlefield success across the Frankish and Anglo-Saxon worlds. Whether every tale is true or not, they all point to the same reality. Viking warriors were effective, feared, and consistently victorious in the kinds of fast, brutal engagements that define their age. Their reputation wasn't built on myth alone, but on results repeated again and again. And behind those results was something far less visible than a longship on the horizon. A quiet mastery of fire and metal that gave them an edge others didn't always have.